right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us live on LinkedIn. I'm Autumn Morgan, the marketing coordinator here at Planet Argon. This is the second episode of Planet Argon Live, our new webinar series, where we share short practical chats on all things Rails, working with legacy code, modernizing apps, debugging tips, project workflows, and everything in between. Today's session is all about Git automation. If your team's ever felt overwhelmed by merge chaos, repetitive tasks, or just too much Git busy work, then this one's for you. We'll dive into 5 automation strategies that can streamline collaboration and help your team be happier and more productive. Our speaker today is Ben Parisot, the engineering manager here at Planet Argon. He's always looking for ways to improve how teams collaborate, which makes him the perfect person to share practical Git automation strategies today. Just so you know, we'll leave time for Q&A at the end, so feel free to drop your questions in the comments as we go. And with that, I will hand it over to Ben.
Awesome. Thanks, Autumn. Let me share my screen. You can all see this lovely presentation. All right. So yeah, today we are talking about some automations that you can put into place to reduce busy work and calm your Git and merge and release workflows. I'm going to show you some simple examples, and at the end, there's a checklist that you can use to get started implementing these solutions this week. So let's dive in. All right. So first up top, how many of you regularly deal with any of these issues? Chances are hopefully not all of them, but probably a lot of them. These are the pain points that we're going to be going over in this webinar. So inconsistent PR descriptions, broken builds reaching prod, stale branches, cluttering up your repos, and making Git and merge issues constant, and notification overloads from all of the different tools that you're going to be using. So these are some of the areas that we're going to be talking about, and we're going to dive into ways to automate to make these not so painful for you. All right. So before we start, let's take a look at the why. So why should you take time to add this automation into your workflows? Well, studies show, and there's a slide at the end with all the different studies we reference. So you're going to hear a lot of stats. I'm not going to reference the studies for each one as I go, but you can look them up at the end if you like. So studies show that implementing CI/CD automation can reduce lead time by up to almost 75%, which is kind of like astounding to me. Not surprising, but when I actually saw that number, it was pretty wild. This, of course, means faster delivery for you and your teams and more time for innovation of your product or for your clients. AI-powered PR review bots can save a team up to about 24 hours for every 2-week sprint cycle. So that's about a day of work that you are adding to a sprint for every PR bot that you are using. And then CI/CD checks in PRs reduce merge time by about 85%, which is a huge efficiency boost for your workflow. And what about notifications? They are a pain in the butt, of course, but necessary, obviously. So batching notifications, which is a solution we'll talk about, tends to save developers up to 2 to 3 hours per day. So that is a lot of time that your devs or yourself can use to spend on more focused deep work or creative problem solving. And overall, reducing task switching and saving time via automation, which are what all these solutions are about, improves the developer experience on your team, which makes for happy and more productive developers. All right, so let's dive into the specifics of these issues and how to solve them. So strategy number one for solving some of these issues is automated PR templates and standards. Now, what's the problem here? Vague PR descriptions. You've all seen it. You've all probably written one or two in your time. These are PRs that have very little information. They might just have some vague thing like makes a change or updates this checklist or does something like that, fixes stuff. I've seen a lot. That's not super helpful, as we all know. That can delay reviews, and for every delay that happens, that gets compounded. And so, if you're working on a big project with multiple team members and there's lots of PRs being opened, and a lot of them don't have good descriptions, those delays add up. And also, vague PRs trigger clarification loops. So reviewers can feel very uncertain about the why. What am I looking at? Why was this created? And then they go and ask more questions, which then might require an update to the PR or something that is another response to that question. And so this just becomes a cyclical loop, and cycle counts go up, and that increases the total cycle time and context switching, and it just becomes a big pain in the butt. A lot of time wasted there. So, what is the solution to this? PR templates. We use these at Planet Argon. They are delicious and perfect, and never anything goes wrong. Well, it's not true, but they are very easy to implement and they are very, very helpful. PR templates are markdown files that you can add to any repo. We use GitHub, so we put them in our GitHub workflow file, and they prompt the person who is creating the PR to answer some very high signal basic questions that are necessary and required for every single PR. And those types of questions are related issues or tickets that this PR is resolving, the changes that are proposed by the PR, obviously, how you might see those changes, where the changes occur, back end, front end, that sort of thing. Any sort of required updates or migrations or new dependencies that might need to be added in order for this PR to be viewed or tested, how the new code was tested, and any documentation that was updated to capture the changes. Uh, Interesting fact I found while I was researching this, a 2024 study of Copilot found that PRs with templates reduced the lower median review time, created a significant reduction in the review time for the actual human reviewers, and actually had higher odds of being merged. So even if you don't care about time and you just care about getting your code out the door, PR templates can help you with that because your PRs is going to be merged more regularly than if you're just using some vague description. All right, so how do you implement a PR template? Pretty simple. Like I said, we use GitHub. So we have a .github file. You can put it just right in there, or you can have a workflows folder underneath that folder. And essentially, it's just a markdown file, and then that's going to populate in the PR description um, uh, field when you open a PR. So super easy. Some things that we have done to help enforce PR descriptions and also just better PR best practices. You can enable branch protection so that the merges require a completed PR review. Hopefully that's already in place for you, but if it's not, highly recommend. And some tips for starting with this, please start small. You can just do one template, have maybe one or two required sections, and then as you find that your team requires more information on PRs, or there are things that are being missed in the description, you can start adding those into the template and have that evolve over time. All right, strategy number two, AI powered code reviews. Of course, we're going to talk about AI today. So the issue with PR reviews are that most people, and this has been also uh, corroborated by studies, reviewers typically look at syntax, they look at style issues, and then eventually might get to like the logic of the code that's being introduced. So this is an issue why? Well, feedback loops are longer if you're having if you're having your reviewers look at everything, including style and syntax. This leads to slower merges. It can lead to important changes in the logic of the code being missed. And then that eventually just uh, ends up with unexamined work getting shipped. This is obviously not great. You don't want a feature to go out that is missing some big requirement, or that might have some like logical bug in it that wasn't caught by your test suite. So what is the solution to this? PR review bots. These are great, with a little grain of salt that we will talk about in a second. But PR review summaries are one of the main things that we use at Planet Argon, and they help to generate a very clear overview of the changes that are important about that PR. So the reviewers can focus on what is actually substantially being added or removed from this code. An AI reviewer app that you can find in the GitHub marketplace, such as CodeRabbit, can post line by line suggestions. This one right here was done by Claude. And without getting too much into the details of that PR, you can see that there's a number of really cool sections that it adds. To-do lists. It can give very high levels review feedback, such as like tests that are running, the code quality, bug assessments, and then later in that PR assessment or PR post, it gets into like specific line by line issues that it has noticed. So you can tweak this yourself in the configuration of the tool and have it specifically look at some things over others. But just even right out of the box, these tools are obviously very good for capturing things that might get missed by a human reviewer. So how do you implement them? Pretty simply, you can use GitHub Actions or whatever pipeline tool that you use. You can use an Actions workflow that runs an AI review step on all your pull request events. So you just have it look for that event, listen for that event, and then post comments with its analysis. Obviously, you'll want to add in your own review, AI review code here, but if you're using a marketplace app, that might just be out of the box turnkey solution, so you don't even need a config file. But if you are using the actions, it's a pretty simple setup. So don't be too scared to integrate something like this. All right, strategy number 3 is getting smart with your pipeline integrations. Now, what does this mean? Well, manual testing is what we're going to focus on for this. And as we all know, manual QA, it can take some time. It's pretty slow. It also can lead to broken builds getting to production, especially if the QA tester, like in the PR review template issue, doesn't exactly know what they're supposed to be looking for, or they don't have the time to go fully step by step through everything in the PR to test it. So some more stats for you. Manual QA heavy teams have generally about a 45 to 60% change failure rate, meaning something gets pushed to production or is rejected by in the PR, or has to be rolled back after being released. And that's compared to teams that have automated testing on their CI/CD. Also, manual QA loses around, on average, 200 hours per month for teams that only do manual QA. And that involves a lot of like hand running validations or hand running test suites, or even doing like manual user testing, clicking through an application. So that's a lot of time that you can save by setting up some CI/CD integrations. And what are those solutions? Well, it's basically automated checks in your pipeline. You know this, you probably have some running, but this is just a good reminder that you should attend to these and make sure they're set up for all of your pipelines, because they really do help. You can have required status checks, automated testing suite checks, and then you should have some preview deployments for every PR that you open. So run your unit tests and build on every PR, and don't worry, you don't need to be a DevOps expert to start implementing the solution. There are thousands of actions in the GitHub marketplace that can help with this, and they can make assembling your pipeline super quick. But what if you're going to do it yourself? What does that look like? Well, this is an example of an actions config file, and it's pretty straightforward. This one, you will just start a job and you set up typical jobs like checkout, set up the runtime, install dependencies, running your tests, building your artifact, and then deploying a preview behind that status check. So one good thing to add on to this is locking the branches with branch protection so that merges only happen when all of the status checks come back green. So that's a pretty basic implementation, but it's a solution that's straight out of Dora best practices, and it's like a well accepted and widely used way to improve change failure rate and lead time. So definitely something you want to invest your time in and your team's time in if you haven't already. All right. Strategy number four, clever notification management. This is something that I'm a big proponent of because I have ADHD and I get very distracted by little things popping up every now and then. And then I think is pretty common even for people without neurodiversity because according to these research that I did, workers, office workers, developers in particular, check their email or a Slack or instant message about every 6 minutes. And about 40% of all white collar desk workers never get a 30-minute block of uninterrupted focus time in a workday, which is it's heartbreaking, honestly, if you think about it. After a disruption, it can take about 23 minutes and 15 seconds, which is a very specific average time, but on average, 23 minutes and 15 seconds to regain full focus. So that kind of goes to explain why most people don't get a full 30 minutes to an hour of focus time because they're getting distracted all the time, and then it takes a half an hour to get back into a workflow or a focus state. That can really add up. Also, another problem is that repeated alerts train the users of those tools to ignore them. So you've probably seen this. You probably have apps on your phone, work or non-work related, that have notifications, and you reach a point where that just becomes saturated and you just stop paying any attention. Attention tends to drop around 30% for reminders that come out or notifications that come out that the user considers to be the same. So if you get the same notification over and over, you're going to start ignoring it pretty quickly. And unfortunately, for in software development, security notifications or monitoring alerts are often considered redundant by about 60% of those people that view them. So that's not great for the security of your application or the sanity of your team. So what is the solution to this? Well, smart notification ruling is really great. And then team-based routing is what we tend to do at Planet Argon. So we have some GitHub notifications and our monitoring tool notifications set up in such a way that it only alerts us when we have things that we know that we need to be alerted about. So outages, PR openings, uh, any sort of response or direct response to a comment or a question on a PR. These are things where the person actually needs a response and there's a time sensitive element to it, or there's a time sensitive element because an application is down or a server's down or something, and we need to get that fixed immediately. So make sure it's time-based or make sure that it's directed at a specific person. Some ways that you can route things is to use focus channels. So at Planet Argon, we used a pull request channel for our teams, our clients' PRs. This helps sort of segment and make sure that people that are on those project teams know that if they are seeing an alert from that channel, that means they have to pay attention to it because it's not just a general all client, all team PR channel. It's the one that they're on, and they probably will likely have to respond to that. So how do you implement this? There's lots of different ways that you can integrate notification tools like Slack or email with your tools like GitHub or your monitoring tools like AppSignal or Pingdom. If you're using GitHub and you want to create a simple webhook, here's a code example for that. It's pretty simple. Again, it listens for a pull request event opening, and then it targets the specific channel. You would want to change that channel there to where you're targeting. or the reviewer. And then you can create a little summary and have it automatically go ping that channel or go send a DM to that user. And that's a nice way of having that automation help with notification fatigue. All right, our final strategy today is automated branch lifecycle management. Now, this sounds really boring, and it kind of is, but it's actually a really huge issue. And the more I dove into the numbers here, the more I was surprised at what a negative impact it can actually have on your team. So about 90% of merges and about 24 to 20% of rebases hit conflicts and that's just a fact. Sorry. Um, and on top of that, teams that keep three or fewer active branches and emerge daily, they achieve higher software delivery performance. These are all benchmark studies that were done by GitLab. And the interesting one, there was this benchmark test. They took a repo that had 4,000 branches, a test repo, 4,000 branches, and it took 11 seconds for that to open in the UI because Git iterates on all the refs for every fetch or clone. So that latency just piles up, and the latency increases as those branches get, as there's more branches that get added. So that's definitely a thing that you want to consider, keeping those your branch management clean. How do you do that? Well, you can automate branch deletion. You can also automate rebase and schedule cleanup jobs. The easiest way to do this, the simplest thing you can do is just go into your repo settings, scroll down to the PR section and click automatically delete head branches. This will delete a feature branch after it's merged into main or prod or wherever you're merging, and bam, it's done. That doesn't necessarily delete it, obviously, locally, so you'll have to do that manually with your team. And that's a good time to schedule branch cleanups. You can automatically schedule something to look for and delete branches that have no commits for 30 to 60 days. You can also set a time for your team to do it as a group. And that's a good way to get them to clean up locally as well. So how would you implement this? GitHub Actions, again, there's a simple config file for branch cleanup, and you can easily go in and determine, configure how stale the branch needs to be before it will be deleted, or how stale the PR should be before it's closed, and the sort of messaging that you want to include on that. You can also just do it through locally, through your terminal. Some pretty simple CLI commands there that will merge your branches as necessary or find and delete old ones. We try to do this regularly at Planet Argon. Not going to say that we're the best at it, but it's one thing that you can do to have all of your team do it together. We like to encourage people to sort of have a pairing session or even like a branch cleanup party. It sounds really corny, but it gets it done, and everyone knows that they don't have to worry about it until the time when it's scheduled to do. So let's talk about some of the results that you can see from implementing these strategies. For PR templates, they tend to turn 20-minute reviews into about a 5-minute review. So reducing review time by like, what is that? 80%, something like that. AI reviews catch about 80% of issues pre-human review, which then, of course, frees up time for the human reviewer to go and look at logic and things that aren't surface level. Smart notifications can reduce noise notification by 70%, which will give all those benefits that we talked about before, and help your team focus more. CI/CD pipeline integrations, hopefully you'll reach a zero broken main branch deployments, or at least significantly reduce the change failure rate there. And branch cleanup can save 2 to 3 hours a week, going down to as little as 5 minutes a week if you automate that strategy, so you don't have to manually go in and delete everything. Overall, this can lead to higher developer satisfaction scores through DevX surveys. and just improved code quality metrics like lead time and change failure rate. Now, here's the strategy for you. It's pretty simple. Of course, you can do it however you like, but these are some simple wins that you can implement this week. Just start with a PR template. Super simple and easy to set up, and it provides immediate clarity. Then you can start getting into CI checks for fast protection. Then I would automate the branch deletion after you've, of course, talked with your team and decided that's where you want to go. This helps with ongoing repo hygiene. Then I would start introducing AI review bots and determining how you want to use them and how you want to help them help them reduce your reviewer toil. And then you can end with notification routing. And again, you want to aim for super high signals like events or outages and keep them in channel specific or DM specific notifications so that people aren't tuning them out. Whew, Autumn, I think that's it. That's all I got. So there are some resources there. I don't know if we're going to be sharing this deck or not, but we can also provide a list of the resources and the studies that I use for these stats, but that's all.
Wow, awesome. Love that. We have a little bit of time for Q&A. I don't see any questions posted in the chat yet, but if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and put them in there.
If while people are coming up with questions, I do want to say I forgot to mention in the AI bots section, I had this note and I skipped over it, but you want to make sure that you are not relying solely on AI reviews before merging in, especially into a production environment. Like AI bots should be used as they're used in any sort of like uh, code assistant way that they are offering suggestions and then the human reviewer is going to agree or disagree with those suggestions. So they're a way to get a lot of some good summaries and a lot of information condensed to like maybe bullet points or something. There's got to be human eyes on those PRs before they're actually merged.
Great. Well, it looks like we don't have any questions. So thank you, Ben. That was such a practical look at how Get Automation could take some of the stress out of teams' workflows. This was the second session of Planet Argon Live, and we'll be back soon with more short, useful talks from our team. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll also be sharing the replay in case you want to revisit a strategy or pass along to your team. And I would also really love to share the slide deck because it's so beautiful. So look out for that. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next time.
Thank you.